Hi guys, welcome to the first game of the Canada Day Open, my next chess tournament. I was very excited for this tournament considering the relative success I thought I had in the last tournament. I had been preparing a lot for this one. Oops, sorry. There we go. I've been preparing a lot for this one, some new opening theory. Unfortunately, I'd been on vacation right before the tournament was supposed to start, so I basically got home the day before the tournament started, and the first game was in the morning, so I really had no time to prepare for a week in advance, which was unfortunate, but nevertheless, I was feeling confident. I'd been playing a lot online. I was feeling better. I was playing longer time formats, not just blitz, so I was feeling good. And I got to this first game, and unfortunately my opponent did not show up for about 20 minutes, so I was walking around, checking out the other games. It was in the same venue as the last tournament, so I knew my way around. And my opponent eventually did show up after about 20 minutes. We shook hands. He was an older gentleman, very nice. And he played e4. And last tournament I only had one opportunity to play the Alekhine, so I was happy to see e4 because I got to play the Alekhine. Unfortunately, he didn't play e5 and go into the... normally what happens is you get into the 4 pawns attack with the Alekhine, and you get something like this. And this is standard. And I know the theory here, but what is also common is they play knight c3 instead, and then we go into the Scandinavian variation. Also possible here is to play e5, and then you can sometimes go into a Vienna or the Vienna gambit, like this. This is also common, but he played knight c3 and I played d5, which is a Scandinavian. This provokes d4, you drop the knight back, he plays d5, and now basically it's just a good French defense because my knight is already on a square that controls c5 or c5 and e5. Whereas in a normal French, the knight is still here and you have to develop it to here, and then it sometimes goes to f5. I don't know my French defense theory that well, I just know this specific position in the French. He played knight f3, which is normal, and then the typical French breakthrough with c5 here. And sorry about that. Yeah, typical French breakthrough with c5. You're trying to chip away at the center. He played bishop b5 here, and here I had a very long think, an unnecessarily long think, and this is a common theme in this tournament, was I was taking too much time and I was always in time trouble. So here, the best move is knight c6, because let's say they castle. If they castle, then you can take on d4 here, and if they ever trade, you can recapture with the b pawn, and whatever they take with, well, if he takes with the knight, he loses a pawn. Actually, it might not be so simple because this pawn is targeted. But in any case, if they take with something on d4, you always have c5 to push the knight back, and something like this, you get a lot of space. You can build up some pressure on the e5 pawn. So that's always good if they trade. And if we take here, so if he doesn't take back, let's say moves the knight back, this is one of the top engine moves. I believe, yes, you just played bishop c5. This pawn is still under attack. It's not so simple right now with the pin, but it's a good position. And white has no center. Normally they haven't reinforced it with c3 to protect d4, so basically black enjoys a good position. They've equalized for nothing. But I played a6 after, I think, a 20-minute think, which was unacceptable, really. I should not be thinking for 20 minutes on move 6 and then play a6. And then I further complicated things when he took, which I was expecting, and I took with the knight. And the thing is, the knight really belongs on... well, I should take with the bishop because the knight really belongs on c6, pressuring the center. On d7, it only pressures e5 and c5 and not d4. And d4 is a key square in the French defense because you can usually apply a lot of pressure with the knight. But I took with the knight, and now it becomes a little bit harder to develop this bishop. My plan was to play b5 or b6 and put the bishop on b7, but taking with the bishop would have been better, just to allow the knight to pressure the center. He played bishop d3, which is normal. He is threatening to maybe take here, and then if I take with the bishop, he trades everything, and then I've traded off my very good dark squared bishop, and I'm left with this terrible light squared bishop, which is blocked behind all the pawns. So I defended with queen c7, which is normal. He castled, I played bishop e7, just trying to castle, which is also normal. He played rook e1, also normal, castled, and knight e2. And the idea behind knight e2 is to play c3, so when I take on c4, he can take back with the pawn and still have a good central bind. So for that reason, I took on c4, d4, pardon me. So he can't reinforce it with c3. He took back with the bishop, and I played b5. And this is all still fine. The position is about plus 0.5 for white. I'm trying to put my bishop on b7, maybe advance, and then play bishop a6 in some lines. After bishop e7, I can try to kick away this bishop to open up the bishop with d4. So I had some plans. The position is still completely equal. He played c3, so after moving knight e2, he still did play c3, which is it's usually a fine idea in these positions, these French-style positions. And the engine really wanted b4 here. I didn't play this. Instead, I played a very bad, not a very bad move, but a very non-French move. And my idea was, if he takes en passant, then this is a common break in the French to play f6. So f6 would have been normal. And even if we check f6, it's still +2 for white after knight f4. So maybe my whole idea of moving the f-pawn was no good. But I digress. I played f5, and this is bad because of his move knight f4, and this pawn on e6 is weak and difficult to defend. Although I did see this, I predicted this, my idea was to play knight c5, because f5 creates this nice outpost on e4, and I wanted to get my knight there. And moving the knight also opens up the bishop to defend the pawn. So for now, position is still fine. He took, which I expected, I took back, and now my dark squared bishop is quite open actually. It's enjoying a nice diagonal here. And if I can get my bishop to b7, maybe open it up with d4, then my bishops are very strong, and if I can somehow defend this pawn, because if I move the bishop I lose defense, so if I can somehow defend this pawn, I will be enjoying a good position, but that's a lot to ask for, so it was a bit ambitious of me, this f5 move. He played knight g4, attacking the pawn. The engine wanted a3 in this position, maybe to prepare b5, and then knight g4, queen h5, all those sorts of ideas. But he played he played knight g4 right away. And then I played the only good move in this position, which is queen b6, which not only creates an attack on f2, but also defends the e6 pawn now with the queen and the bishop. So queen b6 is a multi-purpose move. He played rook e2, defending the f2 pawn, and I played h6, pushing his knight back, and now the position is actually back down to plus 0.7 for white, because I've pushed his knights back. His rook is a little bit awkward here, and I do have this battery on the diagonal here. Except the only problem is I'm still stuck defending this pawn in a lot of lines, so my bishop cannot move. And what I really should play soon is bishop d7, because this keeps defending the pawn and also connects my rooks. Unfortunately, I didn't play this for some reason. I played a5 instead. The position is still only +1. I'm trying to go b4 and maybe break open the queen side, but this is a little too slow. He jumps back in with the knight, and now the position is back down to zeros, because I can play rook d8 and then maybe play for d4. I played rook e8, which is okay because I wanted to defend the pawn, although rook d8 was better. He plays rook c1, and now the position is equal again. I have chased his knights back, especially after this. So I've chased his knights back. His rook is a little awkwardly placed, like I said, and my king is still safe. This pawn is defended 3 times now. And here I played bishop b7. I really should have played bishop d7 as I noted before, because then I can always just transfer it there if I really do want it on this diagonal. But I didn't do that. I played bishop e7. It's still okay. Now he's coming in and attacking the pawn again with knight d4, and here is I could have justified my a5 move by playing b4, and if he just drops back with a knight, for instance, I just keep developing normally, anticipating the opening of the c file, and all is good actually. I can always chip away, and then maybe take the knight, maybe open up the c file. You know, it's a position, but I didn't do that. I had been defending well for a while. I blunted his attack, but then I started to fall apart here. King h2, it puts my king in a little bit of an unsafe position. It's also not a very useful move because the knight was going to go back to f4 anyways because it didn't have a future on the g3 square, g6, pardon me. So king h2, and then I followed it up with an even worse move, which was g5, and this just gives him this square on f6 for nothing, which he goes for. And in my defense, I was quite low on time here and struggling to find moves. I really should have played b4, and it was bothering me after the game that I didn't, but what can you do? I made it even worse by playing king g6, attacking the knight, even though it was going to go to f6 anyways. I moved the rook. I moved it to e2 because in my mind I still really wanted to defend this e6 pawn, although keeping it on the back rank would have probably been better. He plays a good move here, rook e3, opening up the queen on the h5 square for the queen. I defended this with g4, but unfortunately this rook e2 move allowed my king to be stuck on this side of the board. Oops, sorry. And he is able to sacrifice the knight here for the two pawns, and now it's all over because what I missed was he has queen h5 check, and my king has no way of getting back here because I am forced to go back to this file or back onto the f file. I went to g8. He played rook h3, preparing to play, let's say I do nothing, then he can play queen h8, king f7 only move, and rook to h7, and this is checkmate because the pawn covers the f6 square. So I tried to, at this point I was under a minute on the clock, and I really couldn't find a move, so I decided to maybe threaten taking on f2, although this is a pipe dream. There isn't much here, and now it's mate in 5 for my opponent, which he finds. He plays queen h8, king f7, rook f3, king g6, queen f6, rook h5, king h5, rook h3, and rook h4 is checkmate. So, and ironically, he would have gone back the bishop anyways. But it was a bit of a cold shower. I was upset because I had such a big time advantage at the beginning, and I managed to throw it all away thinking of a6, which was very, very unacceptable, and I should have focused more on time trouble and managing my time in this tournament more than I did. But a bit rough opening with a loss. This opponent was 300 rating points higher than I was, so I wasn't too upset or anything. I was a little bit dejected because g5 was a very bad move. I had defended well, and I threw away all that good defending in one move. But props to my opponent. He played a very nice attacking game. Knight g4 was a good find to just open up the hg and f files, and then to see that you had queen h5 to keep my king on the king side. Was very well played from my opponent. I got to play my Alekhine Defense. I definitely went home and studied this more after rounds 1 and 2. And I was preparing for round 2 after this. And round 2, well, you'll see. I won't spoil anything. But hopefully you'll see me for the next video, and that's all for today. Thank you.